Hello everyone and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. We have a replay review for you guys today requested by the Corporal Serbian Eagle who's playing Yugoslavia National. He's the Red 4 player here, and the Blue 4 player I believe is playing Commonwealth. And with us today I also have a guest, so Claver, or are you NDMO? How do you prefer to be known?
Yeah, NDMO. Hello, I'm an instructor on boot camp, and I will be watching this today with you guys.
Thank you for being on. I appreciate the different perspective a lot of the times, and especially, I mean, you are a terrifying opponent, if I can go ahead and say so. So we pre-screened this a little bit, and then we're just sort of gonna focus in on, major strategic things, maybe look at some individual engagements, that whole thing. So Eagle, if you're watching this, I hope this is helpful. And to anyone else who's watching who might have some questions answered, well, I hope it's entertaining for you guys as well. And I hope that my cat doesn't keep running around in the background meowing with one of the toys in her mouth. Anyway, so this opener from Blue is very aggressive. Is there anything that you're sort of seeing?
Yeah, if you want to pause it here.
Yeah, sure.
So actually, play it again and go back into neutral real quick.
Okay.
So then pause it again. Yeah, pause it. So just right here, if you want to zoom out just a moment. This is a really interesting heli drop on Blue Force part, because typically what you'll see is that, and this is part of what getting better at Wargame's about, it's taking gambles. He heli dropped SAS right here into the town, and the problem with that, or not the problem, but a risk, is that a Crotal, for example, could shoot down those lynxes before they land. But because Serbian Eagle here, his only AA is a Strop 2, he was able to safely land before it could fire at him, and now he successfully secured a bridgehead, and Mr. Eagle isn't able to do anything about it. And so whether you're, no matter what part of the map you're on, whatever deck you're playing, part of improving is being aggressive and risky when you think it could work. And so, as you'll see on the right flank over here, we'll see in a moment how that doesn't work out for Blue 4, and it works out in Red 4's favor. In regards to Mr. Eagle's overall opener composition, this is a very defensively minded opener. It's very infantry-centric, and that's cool. But you're not really able to push beyond that, which, as a person trying to win as many games as possible, catering your openers to allow you to be aggressive is always a good thing. And so this infantry-centric defensive opener does not allow you to push beyond the front line, the immediate front line, in the opening stages of the game. And depending on how it plays out, that can be problematic. So if we play it, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I'll definitely keep asking you, I think, some questions about how to be aggressive on this map, because I think a lot of people, myself included, often end up in a sort of, I have this zone, you have that zone, we each have our +2, and we end up fighting over like this one single spot, and it's so repetitive sometimes. I wonder if there's a better way, and I wonder if you might know that better way, so I'm very curious what's to be said there. This is just a small micro error. This Mi-17's been at its location for a while. It needs to be unloaded very, very quickly. I think, let's go back to Red 4's perspective here. This stuff is not visible. This is recon infantry in the Mi-17. It needs to be down in the town. This is part of opener micro, and it can be really tough to do that. Like, we have this combat going on here in Foxtrot, and trust me, I get it. Like, you want to do this well, right? But the thing that will make your openers, in my opinion, go a lot smoother is not just remembering to respond where your opponent is strong, but also making sure that seeing that doesn't shake you out of what you want to do. I think this is maybe sort of going into what NDMO is saying a little bit about needing to attack, is like, you can't spend the whole game reacting and only reacting, and that starts in the opener. You still have to do what you had wanted, and it looks like Eagle here was definitely trying to go, just make sure you get all the Bravo, and this has worked out pretty well. I guess, NDMO, if you were playing this and you had this position right here, what would be your first thoughts?
What I would probably do... Oh my goodness, here comes the pig. Let's see this drop. Okay, I think the special only will be safe.
Yeah, they should be. This is going in center mass in the town.
Okay, here, let's zoom out, let's give it a pause right here. So, So I'm going to pretend that if I were doing my opener, I just lost my tanks, because I'm very tank-centric. So, if I had done this opener, and I actually took Bravo, because, believe it or not, this is actually like a really great spot to be in, even if you lost Foxtrot, because currently, no matter what happens, both you and your opponent can neutralize the tick. Gecko, Blue 4, is ticking +2, but, with some clever maneuvering here and there, that could be reversed. So in my case, if I were trying to come out of this position and get into a winning position, getting to a point in the map where I exert so much control that I will win, what I would do is that I would kind of like what you said earlier, I would try to focus as much as I could on the two-pointer. Because inevitably, no matter what you do, BL7, ultimately plunging matches typically will devolve into 2-pointer grinds. If you can offset that with a 1-pointer push, either into Bravo or Fox. But here's the thing. We already know that Foxtrot was successfully taken, and there's a lot of stuff in there. We could re-push it, but considering that Gecko has a +2 right now, the safest bet to stopping that tick would be to get a tick of our own and then occupy the 2-pointer. 1-pointer pushes are a great way to get a sneaky +1 when it matters, but currently right now, if I were in his position, I would work on setting up a possible attack into the 2-pointer into Delta.
Yeah, and if I can just build on that for just a second, and I'm curious if I'm overdoing it, let me know. But oftentimes when I end up sort of in this position that Serbian Eagle is in here, where I feel like I've completely lost a flank, I just feel very, very vulnerable until I've locked that down. And what that sort of ignores is like the same is true for Gecko, and we can see this, and you know, maybe
wow, oh my god, that's actually
like, look at this.
Okay,
There's
you watched
so
this
much
already,
space.
and I didn't actually see this. Yeah, that's a lot of space.
It's actually even more vulnerable than Eagle is over here on this side. So like a lot of players, Moto players will do this all the time. It drives me crazy. They find the smallest little gap in your lines and they just don't stop. And what was interesting to me about this was that there's so much space here. And the M84AN never really looks to see if it can be infiltrated. People don't, I don't know, it's hard to think of this as a place you can approach, but I mean, you have the stuff to do it. You have an M84AN, you have a Strop 2, you have Specialny, you have your way to sort of keep pressure on your opponent's +2 with your own aggressive and good recon units. So that's sort of what I'm thinking right now looking at this as well, is just, yeah, neutralizing the tick. I think that's a fine CV buy, but there's so much potential here for dictating the terms of this game, even though Foxtrot is lost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I will say that I think Eagle's playstyle overall was very passive, and so if you want to go into neutral and pause it real quick.
And let me just say with that as well, like, I've said a million times in these replays, I'll say a million times again, this is the same sort of criticism I give to my own, and I invite from others for my own replays as well. It's not meant to be anything like, hey, you're awful at this. It's not what we're saying. What we're saying is you have a lot of potential for this, and we think you could have applied that and done even better, and here's how. So that's how it's meant. Always
so yeah, exactly. So here's how. So I'll say this. Usually, when I take Bravo, like, because I've had many similar openers like this. I never play on Taunt, so I don't get access to Patabranchy, but I get access to shocks and lines and whatever. You can probe with anything, and in this case, Eagle here is in an interesting spot. He has the AN, which is one of the best tanks in the game. He has a Strop 2. If he really wanted to, if he really wanted to push that grip in Bravo a little further, he could have jogged to those Patabranchy, sent him out on a picnic stroll, and entered Delta, and just to see what would happen. Now, granted, these are 35 points. You only get, depending on what transfer you take them in, only 7 to 10. You can't just throw them away, but at the same time, considering that you lost total control of Fox, and you still have Specialny and Patabranchy in Bravo Town, sending the extra squad with support from your tank might not be a bad idea. If you had managed to do that, you actually could have just outright killed a CV or killed some reinforcements coming in. And it's kind of like what you said about how Moto players, part of their doctrine is just looking for any little hole and going all in because they have to or else they can't win. That's what happens when you play Moto. In the same vein, when you're playing Unspec or Mech, it doesn't hurt to try to be aggressive, just to probe and see what you can find.
Gotcha.
And this gap right here demonstrates that perfectly. Don't be afraid to probe.
Yeah, and actually one more thing about the probing thing here. I think the OTAB 71, if you don't want to risk the 35-point infantry here, because they are very valuable, sometimes I'll just take a transport and just chuck it right around here. And if you had done that here, you find nothing, right? And you drive in, you find nothing in the town, you can, feel free to move up there. So definitely try and keep that sort of recon pressure up, just to figure out what's going on. This is a game without perfect information, and I can't tell you the number of games I've looked back on it and said, if I had just taken the risk, if I had just tried to figure out what was going on, right? Another thing I do like, I like the Patabranchy 90 here, and the Prolet, like, this is a very solid defense against 2-point pushes. Only comment is, with 2 Drug teams out at the beginning, It can be nice also to bring one up here, especially if you are going to develop on this side into Delta. Getting a little bit of ATGM pressure here, and you can move it up to the woods here as well, can be a very nice thing. So we have reinforcements coming in over on this side, the Proletary 90 here, Strop 2 as well, and something I've noticed, I think this is the 4th Strop 2 that's been on the field. Right, so there were 2 in the initial opener, 1 that was bought here, back towards Charlie, the 4th one here as well. That's 240 points of Strop 2s, and they're fine.
And he's already lost one.
Right, and they're a fine unit, and a lot of people do really like them, but it feels like in the first 5 minutes of the game, a lot of points are going to anti-air, and not even... So we saw the F-111C come in, and we can always keep that accounting of what your opponent's spending his points on as soon as you know. You keep that running in your head. Your opponent bought a plane. They didn't buy stuff on the ground with those points, right? But the Strop 2 is not really a great answer to the F-111C either. Even if it's right here, the F-111C will probably be able to get in, get out. It drops from fairly high up, I think. So
very high.
Yeah.
Max distance. At best, you might get an Eagle shot off.
Right. Which might
it's
hit.
important. It's important as a player to remember that your purchases should be purposeful, just like your movements. When you buy something, it should be because you know it will be useful later on, not because you just want to buy it. So yeah, that's close to 300 points in AA, and they're not actually doing anything.
And I mean, the Strop 2 is very wheeled as well. I would have hoped to see when this Lynx AH7 comes up, a responsive, get this thing over here. These aren't stationary pieces. Very much so, not stationary pieces. And I think, okay, there it is. Yeah, a little bit delayed, but I mean, that happens. There's a lot to keep track of. It's a very wide map. It always strikes me as a really, really wide map, which is goofy. Like, Nuclear Winter is wider, but the lanes are more separate, so it's a little different. This one I always feel, if I'm playing in both sides of it, I always feel a little stretched. So we have the F-111C. I think we're actually about to see what I mean right here. F-111C drops. Yeah, okay, got a hit. Actually got a second missile off. Dead's drop 2. And that's sort of, I mean, this is an expected place to be sitting in as well, so a blind call, but a blind call that went well for your opponent, which is never what you want. Commando 90, by the way, matchup specific sort of information. Commando 90
very dangerous, very dangerous, but in this case, Blue Force screwed up. Pause it real quick here. You could see that he left his machine guns on, and even though he wouldn't have done as much damage to the M84 because it's only 18 AP, he could have gotten it to below half. But because he wasn't microing, the tank comes in, and now his commandos don't end up being as lethal as they could have been.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, it was a good engagement from Red. Engage with the Proletary. If the Tertiary is firing, engage with the M84. So that, I very much like to see that. That's exactly how you want to be doing that, to keep your stuff alive. I always, oh man.
Or a cheat to the face.
I know that 13 is the threshold for getting one shot, but even 15, I always feel so nervous bringing these guys in the woods. And especially if I know Commandos 90 are around, this M84A is going to stay behind my infantry for as long as possible. Yeah, sort of by default. Okay, so we have an engagement here. Let's speed things up a little bit. We talked a lot at the beginning. I do apologize. You know, there's a lot to be said.
Here's why it's important to defend middle right here. Just like you summed up, just like you said earlier. Having infantry in this town block will stop little maneuvers like this. So in this case, Gecko was not. He wanted to probe and see what he can get away with. Special forces and shock just put a stop to that real quick. So this town and the one to the right are extremely important. The fact that this town block was empty, you don't even need an ATGM in here. A pair of lines will go a long way in preventing your opponent from taking it for free.
Yeah, for sure. I actually think the ATGM is more critical if you're going to be pushing in here.
100%.
Because if you pop into this town block or even into this section of woods, you end up getting line of sight over so much. Is that? Yep, okay. That's the F-111C again.
So, like, all those strops that he bought, when he could have just bought 2 strops in the opener and then spent the rest of his points on a NEWA or 2. You know? And so it's just, like, purposeful buys. Because, like, he's bought 4 strops and now he's lost 2.
Well, and when you know your opponent's going to bring in the F-111C, if they never see anything that should give them pause, then they're just going to keep jamming it down, as soon as it respawns here. And with the Nora B buy, that 120 points could pay for Neva and 1T. even with the purchase already on the field, which I wouldn't advise, I think NDMO is definitely right about switching that to something heavier anti-plane earlier. And the M1T is one of the faction-specific strengths of Yugoslavia, or Entente for the coalition, because it's such a powerful non-radar unit. And it's sort of like, if you play USA, you have to use a lot of their unicorns. Well, I'm a firm believer in you should use the unicorns of whatever unit or coalition you're playing as, or nation you're playing as, because they're good. They're unicorn units for a reason, right? I do like the Nora B, don't get me wrong, but another thing here that I kind of wanted to pick on just a little bit is the double Nora B buy when the situation on the ground is a little bit tremulous is maybe not the best. It's sort of like when people say if you buy too many planes, you won't have enough on the ground when you need it. The same holds true for backline units, especially that you're using to blind fire, which I think you're looking... Oh man, is he looking for a CV there, or was there...
These are CV snipe shells.
Okay.
These two Nora Bs, one of them could have been an ASF, and then the other could have been just a Neva, or it could have been a Neva and a tank. But yeah, all 240 points that aren't helping you fight on the ground now when you're behind in points and your opponent is pressuring you on the front.
And we're going to see the effects of that too, because like all of these Commandos 90 that are giving you trouble are 20 points a pop, and 25 with the box. So you can get 4 of those for 100 points. You can get 5 almost for the cost of a single Nora B. Like,
and you're not even using the Nora Bs to shell that infantry. You're blind firing for a CV snipe instead.
Keep in mind, these things are 10-second aim time. Oh, these look like they are directed.
Here we go.
Nice.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be.
I want to see the impact on neutral on that. Hard luck, yeah, moved it around. Oh, come on. Man, I love watching Artie land, but just a little bit not quite in the right position.
Cooler when it lands on top.
Yeah, okay, well, they got him at the very end, at least got him down to 1 strength. And this is something I think after this game, I heard from Eagle that he put base Proletary into his deck because he was unhappy with how he was trading in the woods here. Is that something you think is worthwhile?
Base Proletary being
15-point shocks.
Yeah, they're an excellent unit, no doubt about it. But ultimately, that's not really it doesn't matter at all. To put it simply, when it comes to forest fighting, you can do just as well with base Proletary or Mehi's Nirvana. What matters is how you utilize your fire support. So if he feels more comfortable using base proles, that's fine by him. But to put it simply, the fact that he didn't have base proles in these engagements before, that was not why he was struggling. And actually, if we want to talk about if you want to put it in neutral real quick and put it and we can pause it here, this was tactically the largest mistake that I feel like Serbian Eagle made. He'd done really well in securing Bravo and did a good job of stopping these probes in middle, but the biggest mishap here was putting all of these points into Fox. He's building up all these infantry blobs and tanks, which is good for an attack, but the problem is that at the same time, while he's buying all these Nora Bs and, just like you said, putting points in areas that he doesn't need them, let's look at Bluefor over here. He's got Centurions and Leopards pulling up, and he's got a pig that has, as we just saw, if we go back, painted his infantry.
Yeah.
When you're behind in a tick like this, purposefully putting yourself deep into a forest fight that you can't easily reinforce on the hopes that you might get a neutral +1 is not ideal.
So I'm gonna push back on you there just a little bit, just to try and maybe flesh out more of the reason why. Because the counter argument that I can already hear in my head for this is, well, okay, yeah, I agree this isn't ideal, I agree this isn't where I want to be fighting, but what am I supposed to do when I know that there's an endless tide of Commandos 90 that otherwise have a straight shot into my home zone? Like, how do you handle that sort of thing without having to match points with it to at least some extent?
The answer is very simple on paper and much more difficult in execution. Proper reconnaissance and applied pressure elsewhere. In this case, what I would have advised would be for Serbian Eagle here to put, either a pair of Proletary 90 and maybe a Recon Hera to spot any cheeky maneuvering down this road that leads directly to a spawn, because leaving this open is vulnerable. If you leave this open the whole game, you deserve to lose your spawn. So obviously, especially if you lose Foxtrot, you cannot leave this road open, 100%. Totally
So
get
you're
it.
saying you're saying pretty much like set up a recon and defense
Exactly.
more like
In fact,
here.
you know what? Even go beyond the 2 proletariat. Buy an M84A if you really fear an incursion into your spawn like that. 100%, totally justified. However, the best way to always make your opponent scared and to make them screw up and change the shape of the front is to apply pressure somewhere else. If you let your opponent dictate the tempo and the pacing of the match, you will eventually lose. So
Let me see if I can
in this
summarize.
case,
Let me see if I can just
yeah.
summarize here, just wrap it neatly in a bow. I think you're saying pretty much do a one-time effective base defense on steroids by here. If and when they approach, you bloody them for it, and take the defense at that. And in the meantime, you develop a push somewhere else.
Exactly. Use those points to apply pressure elsewhere. If he's in danger of losing his 2-pointer, he's probably not going to be focusing too much on trying to be peeking in your spawn anymore, especially because it's such a high-risk maneuver.
Yeah, because I guess we can flip it around, and let's keep going just because this is a relatively long replay. But if we flip it around as well, like if those Commandos 90 that are coming through get absolutely mauled by something here, well then there's less defending as well, and Blue's going to be thinking about defense if they're getting pushed somewhere else. I mean, the number one thing I think of when I'm getting really pushed in one location is, okay, well if I have a counterattack and it fails, am I going to get pushed back there too? Have I just thrown the dice and instead of winning the game, lost the entire thing, right? Like,
Exactly.
that worry is very real. I do really like this snipe though. The second you see the Stormer, this is a high value target. 3 front, but only 1 on everything else. Very good use of the Nora Bs, very good response time. This thing was not visible for that long, and you nailed it. So, yeah, I mean, that is...
Watch those blinks. Pay attention to those blinking units. Make sure that your stuff is hidden, guys.
Doesn't take long, especially with double Nora B up. And, yep, there it goes. Beautiful. Well, not for the Stormer. So, I think there was also another small incursion on this side. 2 vehicles, but I can't find their carcasses. Pretty sure that happened earlier on. So now we see an M84AN coming up. I guess my other question for you, something I would ask you if this was my replay is, okay, so we talked about how to defend here, but couldn't Blue also just attack in here, and don't I need to be ready for that as well? Or is this sort of reduced to the same argument?
Yeah, putting the drug right there, for example, great, especially only, it's a great spot. Ideally, what you would do is that you would try to see those little forest hedges next to the town. You would try to get into a position up there, further up ahead. You would try to occupy these just so you could spot something. And here's the great part about actually defending from this side. If you're already building up a push for middle, you could just rotate if he pushes Fox.
Wait, what the heck?
Because the assets are already there. Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's 3.
Yep.
What was that? Was that... That had to have been... Yeah. It's so far forward, it's easy to go around. Like, they just came right down the main road. Yeah, that's tragic. Double VVP. Gonna be another, probably. I've very rarely seen people attack down this road with this much tenacity.
If they think they can get a free pick like they are now, then they will. So, like, just to reiterate on what I said earlier, a pair of Proletariat 90, if he felt like fast-moving them into a spawn, for one, the double pro would have easily killed both of them. And then that's allowing you to put your points into middle. And we're seeing that demonstrated here right now. He just fed 4 BVPs.
Yeah, and I mean, with the Mechanizovana, that was 100 points right there that we just saw
100 points is down the drain.
Go away. A solid minute of income. Which is crazy to think about. Like, I swear, this game has made me into more of an accountant than I ever thought it would.
Oh, yeah. And so what were the benefits, though? So the M84 got to kill a Stormer, but he didn't even need to buy the BVPs for that. So ultimately, it was a net loss, even though he's going to get away
with... Not with the Mexus. He killed the Mexus, too.
There you go.
Yeah, see? I think it's...
But it's like you said, that's a whole minute of income now that's not going to middle, not going to exerting control on the rest of the map.
Yeah. Which, like... And the other thing, too, is all of this is happening 15 minutes, well, more than that, nearly 17 minutes in, and your opponent is ahead of you on tick, so 96 to 10. It's not the world's biggest gap, that's about 7 minutes. Oh shoot, I can't do math. That's 86, 15, 30, 60, 90. That's going to be 6 minutes of tick roughly ahead of you. But this map is very unique for one particular reason, which is that calculation 6 minutes. That's at +1. That's 3 minutes with a toe hold and his +2. Doesn't even have to be a big toe hold, right?
Not at all.
I've seen
many
games.
Pushes are so important.
Yeah, and you get in here, You're in like Flynn for about 5 minutes, you get pushed out, you hold on your own. There you go.
That's all you needed.
Yeah.
That's all you needed. Just the taste.
Yep. And another thing too, I think Yugoslavia as a national deck is very strong. It has some problems that Entente helps fix, but I think particularly on this map, I would be happy.
It's very strong.
Yeah, I'd be very happy.
I'd be happy playing Yugoslavia National on this map. You have an excellent forest grinding game. You have an excellent tank roster and plane roster. You have a couple of weaknesses in your air tab and maybe your recon tab, but overall very solid. This is definitely not a bad matchup.
Yeah, and you should take those solid units, by the way. Nice buy against the Lynx 3. Very nice. Come on. Give me a kill there. There
Beautiful.
We go. Very nice. Good buy. Very good buy. Very nice call out. Very nice kill. I would be taking all of those Padobranci 90. I'd be taking all of the Mechanizavana in BVP, and you just jam them right through here with like an AN and an A. And unless your opponent brings something heavier than that, you don't even need anything heavier than that, really, because your tanks are going to be cleaning up stuff that pokes its head through here, and then your infantry get in, and your infantry, especially with the Padobranci 90, because they have such excellent long range with the Bumbar, I mean 26 at 1050 meters, you'll even get the ability to deny enemy armor that's coming through this side, right? So you get a little bit deep in the woods, and you can shoot anything that comes up here. So if you cap on this side, like most people do, and you cap maybe a little farther over here, and you will have to watch out for the F111C if you do this, so it's another reason to buy the Neva M1T. I think Yugoslavia is really, really well set up to defend a 2-point incursion. Like, you get in, and you have good tools for that. And then once you've done that, you have great tools for defending that toehold. So I really think it can be a very strong map for Yugoslavia if you shift your focus just a little bit. But by now with the shift the focus thing, I bet we're beginning to sound a bit like a broken record here. So let's speed up to 2, and then I'm curious if we can...
There was a hind over here, and then this
yes,
is what I said. Yeah, it got vanished by 5 transports, and this is what I said earlier about playing into your opponent. That hind flying over the mountains, if you had just forgotten about it, bought the Hera, and just left 2 Proletary 90 over there, those points would have vanished. Because, yeah, you're seeing this build-up, all the transports, all the Royal Marines. Oh, my God. Keep in mind, he still has to jog out in the open to reach you. He still has to come out to get you. And you'll see it if he comes. And it's harder for him to push. And so, this right here is an example of playing into your opponent. Serbian Eagle is paranoid that he's going to lose his spawn. So, he's feeding infantry, planes, and helicopters into this area when it's not really a tactical risk.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, the Thermomig, too, like... It did some good damage.
That was a great drop, honestly. Good drop.
Yeah, it didn't get the kill, though. And your opponent has resupply here, which, I mean... Yeah, that'll help, but it won't be enough, I think, to heal both of these Royal Marines. Especially if it's not... Oh, he turned off fuel. Okay, fair enough. Your opponent knows how to resupply.
Yeah, so this Lekka Pakoda right here, in my opinion, big feat.
Yeah.
Points not going to middle. Points not going to the other 1-pointer.
Well, let's speed up a little bit too, and I just want you to see... I want you to see what your opponent had here. Because a lot of it is very slow, a lot of it... I mean, there's not a lot of heavy armor here, so what NDMO said earlier about defending with an A or an AN, and a little bit besides, that would definitely stop the Avers if they don't, stop themselves. And I think you had more time than you thought. Which is a risky thing to say in this. Like, I've thought before I have more time before I need to buy base defense, and then all of a sudden you don't. But this one is a relatively long path, and frankly I think it's a gift that you have as much open space between here and here as you do. It would be much more difficult to deal with if more of that was heavy forest. Man, this makes me just want to play on Punch Bowl. Can we just, turn it sideways, change the zones? What do you think? Too late for that?
It's a little late. Maybe 20 minutes ago before they deployed.
Oh, okay. Go back, re-roll the map and ranked. I haven't played on Punch Bowl and ranked in a while. I need that. Yeah, Proletary 90. Actually, let's look at this. I want you to see his reaction as well. So he sees the Proletary 90. Royal Marines 90 are tracking over to it. You can win this engagement. And there we go. One of them down. He's buying time for the Centurion Avers to come up. And the thing is, the more panicked and damaged your Proletary 90 are, the slower they're going to run. So something that would never have closed with you before, well, it has the potential to now, especially, yep, boom. And that's always the risk when you're engaging elites with anything other than elites, in my opinion, is they just, like, they're hard to get away from. That engagement, you took a lot of damage because one of your squads engaged, then the other one engaged, and both the Royal Marines engaged off the bat. It's just, that sort of messy thing is very hard to avoid when you're over in this pit fight. You can't take every... I don't know anyone who takes every infantry engagement perfectly, and that's even people who far outskill me in that regard. It's just hard, right? Like it's just a hard thing, and some of it you can't know and you can't prepare for because you don't know where your opponent's units are. So F-111C still alive. Would have loved to see that die earlier to the Neva Mit that just got the kill now. Great unit. Solid unit. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know 7 can crit to 10, but can't 9 do it in more ways, or is that not true?
As far as I'm aware, crits are always just 1.5, so yeah.
I thought there was, well, because 7 can one-tap planes. I thought there was a particular crit that dealt 3.
Yes, yeah, there is. But in general, a critical hit as a baseline will do 1.5 extra damage.
Right, so the argument there is if 7 HE against planes can only kill on the one particular crit, but other crits are 1.5, then 9 should be able to kill on any crits.
That's correct, and that's actually why the Patriot in the United States is so dangerous, because it can one-shot planes fairly common at veteran.
So can the Neva M1T.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this thing even up-vetted from that kill, which, I mean, it's 95 points. F-111C is more expensive. This sort of opponent who's going to throw bombers at you that whole game, it's a great way to up-vet your Neva M1T. It's also, I think, I've made this argument, I think, before to Serbian Eagle, but I would lean more into the Sava than the Strop 2, especially with how they're currently being used, where we don't see a lot of the utilization of the fact that they're wheeled. And the Sava is a beautifully deadly piece of anti-air. It really just is amazing. Of course that works. Kind of. Oh, get the kill. Oh, please get the kill. No?
You were zoomed out earlier looking at the Typhoon, this is a great point to put it in neutral and to pause real quick, just to take stock of what's happened on the map. So it's been 40 minutes. I apologize. Closer to 30 minutes right now, and the front line hasn't changed meaningfully at all. In that, both middle on red and blue are uncontested. The Bravo side is secure, and Foxtrot is technically secure. Serbian Eagle spawn is under pressure, but there hasn't been a change in points. There hasn't been any meaningful kills that have happened here. And this is why it's important to try to, as you improve, to not let this type of stagnant gameplay be the norm. What's happened, and this is ultimately why I believe Serbian Eagle will ultimately lose this match, is that he is unable to take advantage of his excellent units and force a breakthrough in a different part of the map. Look at all, God bless, look at all that stuff that you have right there on your spawn road. And he's been fighting it really hard for the last 30 minutes.
Yeah.
If he had just tricked his opponent into thinking he's gonna come in for a fight, but actually went into a different flank instead, Serbian Eagle could have gotten a tick going. Look at the SF-25 on Blue Force left flank. It's still wide open. There's still nothing there. If you guys are just able to commit to a probe, to find information about weak spots on the flank, and maybe open up the possibility to get a tick, you could go so far. But as we can see, with 10 minutes left in the game, that's not going to happen.
And actually, something I want to say as well, as we get into really the last 13-14 minutes of the match, is when you get into this sort of time frame, you really need to sit back and think, okay, do I have a gap in conquest points? And if so, what the heck am I going to do to fix that? Because I'm running out of time. Anything that you buy, there's a delay before it hits the field, really, in a useful position in the front line. And anything you buy in the last couple of minutes, it won't even get there in time. The game will end, right? So that's why a lot of people will do late game plane buys and late game helicopter buys, because they're the only things that can actually get to the front of the field. It also means that the units you're putting on the board now are increasingly getting close to being the last points that will see reasonable combat during the game. And the Orkan does not need to be in the front line. I understand the frustration with those AS-90s, and the reason that you want to buy this, but Whereas for most people, especially on the newer side, like, well, not newer, but lower rank side, like Private Corporal, things like that, I don't know how many times I've said buy fewer planes, right? Like, I vouched for somebody on boot camp the other day because he gave me a really excellent game. And he said, okay, well, after that, do you have any feedback? And I said, buy fewer planes, right? And I was not surprised. It was not novel. He's heard it before. But for you, I'm actually going to say, buy less backline. Different backline in some cases with the Strop 2 versus Neva, but also just less with the Orkan, the Nora B, especially in the later parts of the game. I mean, you have one Neva Mit here. We haven't really seen many strike planes, so I'm kind of curious why this came out. And we're losing a lot of time to make those dynamic plays happen. And there's not a lot of time left. And I think what's going to end up happening too is you're going to end up running into the later part of the game going, shoot, I have no way to, with the time left, make this up. And that's really unfortunate, because I think there have been a lot of really good plays here. And yeah, oh man, this is cheeky. Yeah. It's really hard to defend against this sort of thing on plunging. It's really weird sight lines defending base. I can't tell you how many times I've had my fob sniped in Echo, even though I had decent base defense.
Well, I stopped running a fob a long time ago.
Yes, but I mean, you're Brig, you've been Major General. The higher up in rank you get, I think the more jaded you get with that sort of thing, just because you've played more games and you've had it happen to you more times. This is a nice spot, and okay. Those are firing. But even now, let's think this through. So the Nora Bs fire in, this doesn't move, they kill it, right? Ideal situation. Time delay? Maybe 2 minutes? Right? And actually, I'm curious. You have no way of knowing which way he's moving.
That's if you kill it.
Here, actually, the corrected shot's hurting you a little bit. So anything after this is just going to be a guess. Some people go right, some people go left. I've seen both different directions there. And instead of having 2 minutes of +2, which isn't enough, you had 0 minutes of +2, which also isn't enough. But my point is, neither one would have been enough. And in the late game, you can't come up with, like, every little bit helps, yes, but the whole of the plan cannot be to get that little bit and nothing more. You know what I mean?
100%.
Fair enough. Okay, so we're getting down to 9 minutes or so left. You have this board position. What do you do?
The best way to try to change this would be exactly what I said. Going back to what we said earlier, this is a very stagnant front. Nothing has changed. So the same right now is the same as before. You need to be able, you need to tell yourself, okay, I need to change this map. I need to give myself a winning position. I need to get a tick. I have 10 minutes left, dude. I gotta win this game. So what do you do? What do you do? You look for openings. You move up infantry. You buy tanks. Serbian Eagle hasn't actually bought many tanks at all this game. Very little fire support. You can't push very well without fire support. Either mechanized fire support like a tank or even a helicopter. He spent most of his points this game on artillery and infantry. And that, even if he was being aggressive, you need tanks to make this stuff work. So right now, yeah, I would try to either push into Delta through middle or go in to sneak to the side. But because Serbian Eagle never had the foresight to try and probe, he doesn't know how empty Delta is right now, and as a result, he just can't get a tick.
Gotcha, and I do want to say as well, usually when people double stack recon, I'm very critical, but I think this is one of the units that really can benefit from it. So, like, M41A1 is very classic to see them in a double stack, but I like this here, especially most of the times you're pushing in on this side, unless you've seen a super heavy, you're going to be dealing with infantry and IFV, and this is a really nice call out to deal with that. So what you do, we've said do this a couple times, now I'm going to sort of say how I would do it. I would probably buy 2 double stacks of Mechanizovana in BVP. I would use the T55A as Vidyach double stack here. I would buy probably a baby Vihor, and I would go in, and you can take the T55A as Vidyach up to maybe about here, and then once this engagement is done, you can bring them up to about here. And if your opponent's defending farther back, the second you make contact, if their infantry is too close to the border here, you'll end up killing those infantry as well with a really nice fire support from the T55As. And then while that's going on, if you weren't going to probe here before, that would be the time when this engagement is ongoing to take the M84AN and say, okay, well, now let's go for it, let's try and get in here. And then, you know, if your opponent's going to have trouble defending against Delta already in the top part, then so much the better if you can make it even more of an envelopment really here. If you can get your Specialny, imagine the Specialny Jednotki in this section. What's his command infantry going to do? Right, like, this would be so nice. And even if you don't kill them right away, well, if you're sniping his CV, and you found it here, but now you don't know where it is, your Specialny Jednotki in here, well, it's not in that block, it didn't walk for that long, it's going to be in here. So it gives you more information as well, just by virtue of being farther forward on the map. And by the way, I'd say at this point, L19's probably a bad buy. Probably a bit of a throw with 6 minutes left, because his F3s don't really do anything to you right now. You've killed his F-111C, you have heavy anti-air on the ground. There's really not much point, in my opinion, of trying to take that air engagement over your own sort of spawn area, and L19s are expensive, right? So that's a fair amount of points as well. Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble. When you do get the BVPs up here, and you are moving forward with the Mechazavana, make sure as well that you keep the BVPs a little bit farther back. They're not the toughest of IFVs in terms of armor, so what you really want to do is you want to use their excellent guns. So you get the Mechazavana moving forward here, and here. You get the BVPs, maybe 2 of them around this side to help with the T-55A fire support, and you take the other 2 this way. And if your opponent has something big, mean, and scary that'll stop that, okay, fine, that's what we bought the baby Vihor for, the 130-point one. And if they don't, then you get fire support into this section as well. And it's really, really hard for blue to stop, to stop a push when red can get infantry into this section. Most people from blue, from what I've seen, will resupply directly into this corner. And actually, if we look... Yeah, so most people, if they're getting pressured, they'll order their reinforcements, their infantry, to right about here. So this is always my goal when I'm attacking, is to, well, let's pound it with artillery, and then let's see if I can get far enough forward where I can hit those IFVs before they unload, because this section's all open road, it's all open ground. So if you can pop the IFVs about here, that infantry has to slow walk, because they're panicked, up to the woods before they even get any sort of damage mitigation. So it's a really, really nice way to capitalize on that success, is you really strike through on this side, you aim for right here, you try and block off the reinforcements, you put pressure on that way. What do you think about that, NDMO?
I concur. Put it simply, yeah.
You ever
I
see,
think it's,
what's the movie? Catch Me If You Can?
Oh, one of my favorites.
I concur. Excellent scene. Okay, well, I think that about wraps it up for me. Let's get through the end of the game here. Do you have any sort of closing comments that we haven't clobbered to death already?
No, I think you did a good job explaining everything towards the end right there. That's an interesting MiG-29 sortie.
I think he's going after the AS-90s.
Just a random
no.
whatever there.
Go out with the bang.
To sum up some closing constructive remarks for Serbian Eagle to roll with for the future. Increase your aggressive tank usage, as in when you do push, for one, you need to learn to push and probe, and when you do, try to integrate armor into that. Baby Vihor, like you said earlier, is an excellent all-around tank to do that with. An M84A, AN, even a triple sack or a pair of T-55s is the Vex. Just something that you can utilize to try to look for weaknesses in your opponent's front. Because, saying it again, this game went on for 40 minutes, and the front never changed. And as a player trying to improve, you should make sure that that never happens.
Gotcha. Well, I just want to say, NDMO, it's a pleasure having you on here. I can't recommend highly enough, if you are on bootcamp or if you're thinking about joining bootcamp, look for him there. He is an instructor and is very, very helpful. If you don't mind a loss or two instructive, helping you polish your skills, NDMO is one of the players best suited to do it, in my opinion. Thank you for being here. Thank you for adding your commentary. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
That's going to be all we've got for you guys today. 2230 kills blue, 2340 red. Hope to see you guys again real soon.